Chapter 2. There's a breach in the circus. It took a few seconds to process what was going on. Well, it felt like only a few seconds, but she could have been lying there for minutes or hours for all she knew. Once Six had started coming to, she slowly noticed the loud noises that filled the air. She hadn't picked up on it at first because of the previous loud rumblings of the signal tower, and the screaming of the static in the television. This noise was at about the same volume, but the noises were different as well. There was the sound of screaming, and laughter. Footsteps and vibrations on the floor. Thumpings above them, and voices around them. Six opened her eyes, only to realize that she was still hugging Mono from behind, her face pressed against his shoulder blades. His breathing and warmth was so comforting to her, and she squeezed him just a little tighter.
And I actually had the nerve to think about.
The two were laying on their sides, Mono on top of one of Six's arms, pinning her down unintentionally. By the way he was breathing, he seemed to be asleep. Six, not wanting to disturb him just yet, then glanced around the room they were currently in. It looked to be. Actually, she had no idea what it could be. It was a small enclosure of some kind, with walls of wood, and uneven padded flooring. Around them were shirts piled up, plastic wrappings. They'd have to be careful not to step on those and risk being hurt, and what looked to be a broken television, the screen having shattered onto the floor in front of it. Six tensed as she heard thumpings on the ceiling above them. It was like there were a lot of people stomping intentionally loud.
It must be adults. No child is stupid enough to be that loud.
Six rationalized. That was worrying. That meant adults could be all around them, ready to grab them at any time. At least they had this little hidey hole for now. Six gently shook Mono by his shoulder, and whispered to him.
Mono, get up.
The boy awoke almost immediately, flinching slightly as he did. His eyes flickered back and forth, going through the same motions she had, then sat himself up and turned towards her. Six sat up as well, now that her arm wasn't pinned under him.
Where are we?
Mono whispered, rubbing his head of brown hair.
What's all that noise?
Six shrugged.
Dunno. We came out of the television. It broke though.
She pointed to the broken screen. Mono looked the glass over, seeming a bit relieved at first, then tensed a little after that.
Can't go back that way.
Six shook her head.
Either stay in here, or sneak past.
She motioned to the only hole in the wall, just large enough for a child to fit through, and separating them from whatever it was stomping over and around them. Mono narrowed his eyes in determination and turned back towards the hole, and Six knew what he wanted to do immediately. The two crawled over to the opening as quietly as they could, keeping their bodies low as they looked outside. To their surprise, they saw children running back and forth, laughing and screaming and talking and shouting. Some looked to be older than them, others around their age, and some even younger. They tended to wear bright colors as well, with bright orange, hot pink, or lime green. It almost hurt their eyes with how bright some of the colors could get. Six glanced down at her yellow raincoat. Despite knowing how dangerous it was to wear bright colors, she found that she really liked this raincoat, both for the functionality, and for its looks. She felt special, wearing something that no other child would. She would be the only one who could. But now, she felt a little less special, with other children wearing colors even more brilliant than her yellow.
What are they doing?
She heard Mono mutter as he looked outside.
Don't they know how loud they're being? What if something hears them?
Six had to agree. These children were being really dumb right now. So loud and uncaring of who heard them. Didn't they realize their lives were in danger? Six forced herself to shrug as she crawled up next to him to look outside as well.
Well, survival of the fittest.
Six.
The girl held in a chuckle.
We need to warn them.
Mono said, already moving to sit up. Six glared and pulled him back on the ground.
No, idiot. You'll just get killed too. If they want to die, that's their fault.
What are you guys talking about?
Six and Mono both jumped when they heard a new voice, now close and referring directly to them. The two looked out of the opening again to see a boy with dark skin leaning down to look inside of them. Mono and Six tensed, but the boy just smiled down at them.
Hey, I didn't know this ship had a secret hideout. Cool.
The kid slid inside, making Six and Mono scramble back to get away from him. Other children were hit or miss when it came to reliability. Sometimes they backstabbed you. Sometimes they used you for something, then left. Sometimes they were just terrible at survival, and accidentally gave away your position. It seemed like this child was going to be one of those. Once the kid was inside, he saw them scrambling back and blinked his black eyes in confusion.
Oh, sorry. Is this your guys' base or something? Well, my mom always said that sharing is caring, so could you let me check it out for a little bit? It's cool in here. Whoa. Is that broken glass? Did you guys bust that TV or something?
6 suppressed a groan. This kid was a talker. Gross. With a quick glance at Mono, she could tell that her friend was already uneasy. Of course, he wasn't going to voice his opinion, so she needed to do it for him.
Keep it down, will you?
She whispered to the other boy harshly.
Something's going to hear you.
The kid just looked even more confused. Then his eyes lit up.
Oh. Are you guys playing hide and seek? Gotta say, this is a really good hiding place. Well, don't worry. I won't rat you guys out.
Playing. This isn't a game. Are you Stu?
A sudden pain hit 6 like a train. She lurched as her stomach growled with hunger. It was the worst pain she had ever felt, all concentrated into her stomach. She had been hungry before, but now it felt like her stomach was caving in on itself, clawing and trying to eat its own walls out of desperation. She felt sick. She was lightheaded now, and she doubled over, clutching her gut in pain.
6.
Mono was hovering over her, concern written all over his face.
6. What's wrong? Can you hear me?
She moaned in pain, pinching her eyes shut. Just looking at anything made her want to vomit, but she was so hungry she was willing to eat anything.
Whoa. Are you okay?
The kid asked now.
Should I get an adult?
Don't come near us.
Mono shouted to him, attempting to pull her trembling form to his chest.
Go away, she's hurt.
He was warm. He was comforting, even through this unbearable pain.
Hungry.
She mumbled out, trying to explain what this was, even if she didn't even know herself.
You're that hungry? Oh. I can go get you some food. There should be some leftover pizza at our table. I'll be right back.
And then the kid crawled out of the space and left. 6 was left alone with Mono, the boy holding her in his arms. She gazed up at her friend, seeing the fear and panic in his eyes. It was odd, seeing his face without that paper bag covering it. But it was kind of nice. Even if it scared her the first moment she saw it.
6, you're gonna be fine.
Mono told her, though it looked like even he didn't believe it. He glanced around the space, then lit up when he saw some more of those wrappers, these ones unopened. He grabbed a few and started tearing them open.
Here. This should last you until he gets back.
Mono held up one of them to her mouth, and 6 opened it greedily for him to drop inside. As soon as she did, her eyes lit up. It was soft and chewy, sticky and sweet, with a small hint of tartness to it. She quickly chewed it so that she could swallow it as quickly as possible. Once that one was eaten, Mono gave her another. And another. Each one tasted different from the last, with varying levels of sweetness and tartness. It wasn't enough to combat the pain, but it was lessened ever so slightly. It felt like hours before the kid came back, sliding into the space, and explicitly without the food he had promised.
Sorry. Staff says that food isn't allowed in Kids Cove. If you want something to eat, you'll have to leave.
6 groaned and writhed on the floor, glaring at the kid as best as she could. Mono seemed wary as well, arms wrapped over her protectively, his eyes narrowed in suspicion. The kid stared at them in concern.
Come on. You need to eat something, right? I'm sure your friends will understand you having to cut your game short.
6 gritted her teeth.
Why can't you bring it?
Mono questioned accusingly.
Why do we have to leave?
I literally just said that the staff won't allow me to bring it. Come on. My table's not that far away.
Mono continued to glare, and 6 didn't blame him. This felt so obviously like a trap of some kind. Something to get them to leave the safety of this hiding space. Kids were everywhere. Adults probably too. But then, if that was the case, then how come children were running around freely, carefree? Maybe, they found some kind of safe haven? A small community made entirely of kids, safe from monstrous adults? It sounded too good to be true, but the proof was right in front of them. Kids were everywhere. That meant that it had to be some level of safe. Either way, 6 was starving to death. The only relief she would get from this agonizing pain was to eat something. She didn't care if she had to go into the open to get it. She just wanted food. Reluctantly, she looked up towards Mono to face him.
Mono.
She said weakly.
I need it. I'm starving. Please just take me there.
The boy was still unsure, but after she stared him in the eye for a few more seconds, he caved.
Fine. Can you walk? I can carry you.
Carry, please.
Mono struggled for a moment to pull her onto his back, but soon enough her arms were wrapped around his shoulders, her legs around his waist. They ducked as they crawled out of the opening, then gasped at what they saw. The place was massive, with hundreds of children running around everywhere. They were in what was made to look like a seashore, with flooring like sand, and walls painted with seas and skies. There were items to climb in as well, the thing they came out of looking to be some kind of boat. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. This room looked to be a small section of this place, opening to reveal a huge space. It was like if the hospital had a few floors knocked out of it, and filled with bright lights of varying colors, music blaring loudly.
This way.
The kid said, gesturing for them to follow.
The table's nearby.
Six could barely register any of the things all around them. All she knew was color, child, blur, color, noise, color. That, and her hunger anyway. She groaned again as another wave of pain hit her, and she tightened her grip on Mono ever so slightly. She wasn't feeling too great right now. She was so hungry she was willing to eat anything. So when she gazed up at Mono's exposed neck, she hated how much she had to force herself to not bite into his flesh. As they went, Six could smell something. It was odd. It smelled good. What was that?
Alexander? Are these the new friends you were talking about? Uh-huh, Ma. She's real hungry, see? Can she? Of course, hun. Sweetheart, are you?
Six didn't waste time. As soon as she saw the triangular shape, she scrambled as best as she could through the pain and practically devoured the food. It was unlike anything she had ever eaten before, warm and gooey and savory. Within only a few seconds she had eaten the whole thing, leaving her hands greasy. When Six looked up, she was met with Mono and the kid staring at her, as well as a woman. An adult woman. She wasn't as tall as the adults that Six had seen, but she was still clearly an adult. She had dark skin like the kid had, with long black hair pulled into several thin braids, all tied back into a ponytail. She seemed all right. Six could probably take her if she had to. She was small after all. Still, Six was untrusting, so she backed away slightly, reaching to take Mono's hand.
Sweetheart, are you okay?
The woman asked, looking concerned.
You don't look too good. Are you sick?
Six eyed her warily, but she shook her head. She felt much better now that she ate. Though she would like some more food if she could get some. The woman didn't look convinced.
Maybe we should take you to first aid.
I'm fine.
Six snapped.
We're not following you anywhere.
The woman sighed.
Fair enough. Then how about we call your parents? Do you know their phone numbers? Their names? I'm Epiphany, by the way.
Six exchanged glances with Mono. Parents? Numbers? What was she talking about?
You both don't look too good, now that I've had a good look at you. Where are your shoes? How long have you been wearing those clothes?
They didn't answer her. Why should they? Instead, Six shared another glance with Mono, then the two turned tail and ran.
Wait, hold on.
They just continued running. This place was crowded. Surely they would get lost in the crowd, and soon enough, they did. It was loud, and the lighting made it hard to make out specific details, but Six and Mono held each other's hands to make sure that they wouldn't get separated.
Adults aren't attacking the kids. Do you think it's safe?
Mono shrugged.
I guess. Safe enough. Anyway, are you still hungry? Do you want to get some more food?
Six's stomach growled greedily, though thankfully not as bad as her hunger before. She nodded.
Sounds good.
It was actually relatively easy to snatch up more of the triangular food. There were tables everywhere, some seated with kids and adults eating, but some left unoccupied, food long forgotten. All Six and Mono had to do was walk by and snatch them up as they passed it. There were many different kinds as well. Some had things on top of the gooey yellowy stuff, while others didn't. Some had a lot of stuff on top, others only a few. Some were thick, some were thin. It all tasted amazing to Six. She even offered Mono a taste, and he instantly fell in love as well.
I've never eaten anything so good before.
Six nodded in agreement. She was used to eating old food from dumpsters, or scraps left over from the hunters' meals, or long expired and moldy food from apartments they traveled through. In comparison, this food was god tier.
Hey Six,
She turned to Mono.
what do you think this place is? Kids and adults seem to get along. And there's food everywhere too. What kind of place is this?
Six thought about it for a moment, swallowed her food, then shrugged.
I don't know. But if there's free food and no one chasing us, then I really don't care.
The boy chuckled and nodded.
Yeah, I guessed so. This place is huge too. We should look around, don't you think?
That sounds good.
Hey, you two.
Both kids stiffened and jumped to face the angry voice. There they saw another woman, this time with pale skin, green eyes and blonde hair tied back into a ponytail, dressed in a uniform of some kind, and storming directly towards them.
I see you stealing those pizzas.
She declared furiously. Stealing? Oh. Six thought they were for everyone. They were just lying there. Her and Mono's eyes widened at the realization, then without a second thought they turned and took off running, dropping the food in their hands as they did.
Hey, get back here.
Yeah, no. Six would pass. Suddenly the lights in the building dimmed, and a loud voice started to talk, seemingly from all around them.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Fazbear Entertainment would like you to put your hands together for the one, the only, Freddy Fazbear.
The music in the background was blaring now, colorful lights going off everywhere. Six and Mono noticed a large crowd of people gathered around where the lights were coming from. Realizing they could hide in the crowd, the two exchanged glances, nodded, then took each other's hands before rushing into the crowd of people. They ducked and weaved their way around, which wasn't too hard with their smaller size compared to everyone else. It was a bit stressful however, what with being this close to what felt like hundreds of children and grown-ups alike, each yelling and screaming with joy at something. Six didn't know what. But soon enough, they made it near the front of the crowd, and gaped at the sight. 4 figures rose up from the floor, unlike any the two had seen before. They were much taller than the adults here, though still not quite as big as the adults they were used to. They were animalistic looking, with muzzles and ears and tails and beaks, but each stood upright like a person. They didn't seem quite organic though, looking more like they were made out of something like plastic, similar to the porcelain children they had met in the school. It was like they were living dolls. Each held something in their hands, 3 of them having music coming from them. Meanwhile, the bear-like one seemed to just be moving around at the moment, pumping its fist in the air. The bear ran to the front of the stage he was on, pulling something smaller off of the stick thing he had, and looked ready to speak. But as he looked into the crowd, he paused. His plastic-looking blue eyes locked with Six and Mono. It was just for a second, but it was enough to send them into another panic. Six's grip on Mono's hand tightened. Then, the bear started to move erratically, head and arm twitching. It happened for a few seconds, and then it stumbled and collapsed to the floor. The crowd around them gasped. Some kids called out a name, and some younger ones began to cry. Then the crowd started flying into chaos. Children ran around, and adults went to follow them. Others took kids by their hands and turned to leave. Some picked up smaller children to console them. Mono and Six were being shoved around as people moved left and right. Their cover was disappearing by the second. It got even worse when they heard loud and authoritative voices yelling out. Everyone, please, remain calm. At this time, please make your way to the front doors of the building. Everyone will be checked out and sent home. The two panicked even more. That blonde lady from before would find them. What should they do? There were no good places to hide right now. Except
6, up there.
Mono pointed to the stage, and the two noticed that the floor beneath the bear was slowly going down. An elevator? With little choice, the two ran up the stage and hopped down and landed on the descending floor. This was still not a good place to hide, they deduced silently. Plus, what if someone was waiting at the bottom? They would be found out for sure. Then Six noticed it. The giant bear doll thing had an opening in its chest now, perhaps having opened during the fall. Sure, it wasn't a great option, but it was the only one they had. Plus, they had hidden in stranger places before.
Mono, in there.
She whispered and pulled him towards the thing.
Are you sure?
Not really, but it's all we've got.
He still seemed unsure, but nodded anyway. The two ran up to it, and Six climbed in first, making sure to move to the side to make room for Mono. The boys squeezed in next, then pulled the thing shut to hide them.